Some of the content in this video may not be suitable for all viewers. If you are sensitive to the subjects of possible sex trafficking, drug use, and murder, of course, please click off the video. I do not wish to upset anyone through this video, but spread awareness. Viewer discretion is, of course, advised. I actually found this case while I was scrolling through my Twitter timeline. I follow an account called Sipping on Crime Reports, and this account had actually posted about this case. And the more I looked into it, the more I found it a very interesting case of corruption and not a lot of evidence, not a lot of forensic evidence, but mostly theories. That's basically what this case is made on. And so I figured I had to make a video since this is not a very well-known case. It is a very small case. I couldn't find many articles and many facts about the case other than the bodies were found and the main suspect. And other than that, it was very hard. And I figured I'd tell you Sydney Land and Nehemiah Kauffman's story. So here we go. From what I have read, Sydney's cousin was trying to get a hold of her, but had received no answer, so she had sent her boyfriend over to their apartment near Hulaba. I can't say it right, so please tell me if I'm saying it wrong in the comments. And they lived near this place called Hulaba and Peace. Unfortunately, though, when her boyfriend did enter the apartment, he did find the bodies of 21-year-old Sydney and 19-year-old Neo. This was found out on October 27th, 2016, and they had been found to be shot in the head execution style. Sydney's cousin's boyfriend, however, did call the family and friends before police had arrived, and this meant that most of the friends and family had gathered by the crime scene, which basically contaminated the area, and so forensic evidence I could not find much of, mainly because, again, the scene was contaminated. After the murder, things kind of began to look sketchy. Like, the police were releasing photos of the crime scene before they even had a suspect, that's what I read. And Neo's mother apparently had made a Facebook post saying that she knew who killed her son. It was somewhere along the lines of, "I know who you are, you killed my son." And I couldn't find this post, but if it's out there, tell me. Not only this, but there was no struggle. They could not find any forced entry into the apartment. So they believed that Sydney and Neo let the person in, so it had to be someone they knew. Sydney was also described to be a very trusting girl by her mother.
She always saw the best in people.
But her mom says that trusting nature may have been her downfall. Around the time of her murder, they had an uneasy feeling.
There was this anxiety that I can't even describe, this knot in our stomachs all the time.
On October 27th, 2016, their worst fears came true. Sydney, along with boyfriend Nehemiah Kauffman, both found shot.
But it was also known that the couple hung out with kind of a bad crowd that involved drug use and prostitution and even possibly sex trafficking. Because of this, a lot of it is indeed blamed on Neo, and so a lot of people assume that Neo was the target and that Sydney was just kind of there and happened to be shot as well. The main suspect in this whole case that most people believe did in fact kill Sydney and Neo is Shane Valentine. Shane Valentine had a past with harassing Neo's family and was violent towards them. In fact, he was actually arrested for shooting at Neo's home while she was at home. And this is why he is actually currently in prison after being charged with discharge of a firearm into an occupied structure.
Shane Valentine actually went over to Neo's mother's house, fired around into the window, broke out a couple of windows, and rammed his car into the parking garage door as he threatened to cause harm to Neo and his family.
Shane is also a known pimp and criminal. He had faced charges of home invasion and assault with a deadly weapon. A witness had also said that they saw Shane threatening Neo and Sydney 3 weeks before they were murdered, and he was holding a gun while he was threatening them, so it seemed pretty much like a deadly threat. His phone had also been pinged to the general area where Sydney and Neo's apartment were when the murder took place.
They could ping his cell phone in the tower in that area about the time of the murder, and then he was in California the next morning.
However, there is another theory that Sydney's best friend, Frankie, who was a prostitute, had a pimp, and that her pimp killed Neo and Sydney.
I do believe that Frankie's pimp is the killer of Sydney Land.
This woman we're calling Kate does not want to show her face, but knows Frankie and Sydney. She believes the guy named Damo.
I do believe that Frankie's pimp is the killer of Sydney Land.
This woman we're calling Kate does not want to show her face, but knows Frankie and Sydney. She believes the guy named Damo, also known on the streets as Frankie's pimp, is the shooter. His motive? She says it all boils down to a Vegas-style pimp power play.
I do think that because of Frankie and Sydney's relationship and how close they are, that there is a possibility that the fear of Frankie possibly leaving Damo for Neo would be motive enough for Damo to get rid of, essentially, someone that could take away from the white girl that brings him so much money.
And some people even speculate that this pimp, Dominique Thompson, has ties with police, that his sex ring is very affiliated and in connection with the police who were investigating the murders of Neo and Sydney. Not only this, but Connie believes that Frankie does know who killed her daughter.
Frankie, the girl Sydney grew up with, who is now working as a Las Vegas prostitute.
I know Frankie knows who did it. I know I know she knows who did it.
But if Frankie knows who pulled the trigger, she isn't sane.
Do you think she stays quiet because she's on the streets and it's her safety, it's her life?
Yeah.
Obviously, the police do not agree that Frankie knows who did it. They have pretty much claimed that she has always told the truth, that she's been very upfront about the information that she knows, and that's pretty much all they have to say on that theory. They have not looked into Dominique as a main suspect, but he is, again, a well-known pimp in the area. Connie does believe that Neo was a big part in her daughter's death.
Mom says her daughter became exposed to a sordid world of prostitution, drugs, and gangs.
She wasn't brought up around criminals or crime.
Connie Lamb believes Sydney's boyfriend Neo played a key role in luring her daughter to that dark side.
Sydney was a perfect target because she was naive, she was trusting, she wasn't street smart.
And that her friends most likely know what happened and that they should come forward.
Connie is convinced people Sydney once thought of as her friends are keeping quiet.
They're very bad people, and they create destruction all around.
She finds it strange that the night that Sydney and Neo died, they had a hotel room booked for a night out with their friends, but no friends had come to the hotel despite this plan being known for a while.
Sydney had paid for the hotel, and she had sent a message to herself with the confirmation code about 11:45 on the 25th. But no one showed up at the hotel. No one called Sydney. No one texted, no one.
The cops do have their eyes currently on Shane Valentine, but cannot think of a motive nor find any footage from the cameras in the area that would prove he was there that night. They do have a pretty steady theory of what they think happened to Sydney and Neo that night.
What do you think happened that night?
I think Sydney and Neo were both preparing to leave for the evening.
Tracing the timeline, cops say on the last night of their lives, Neo and Sydney were planning to meet up with friends, but never made it out of the apartment.
I believe that based upon the interviews and stuff that were conducted, but the physical evidence, the way they were dressed, the packing of the bags, it was all consistent with that. Phone records indicate that they had contacted a local hotel and casino to book a room.
Before heading out, there was a visitor, someone they willingly let into the apartment.
Again, I go back to the lack of forced entry into the apartment. They were inside the apartment with Neo and Sydney as they prepared to leave, and out of nowhere, they were shot.
Sadly, we still don't have a lot of answers, and we won't know for a while who killed these two young adults, but because the possibility of corruption is involved, I think it may be very hard to find answers without some pressure from the public. If you happen to have any information, please contact Crime Stoppers of Nevada. Their number will be on the screen. I will be linking the Justice for Sydney Land account in the description so you can follow if you want to see any updates on the case, as well as the Sipping on Some Crime Reports Twitter account that I had mentioned earlier. I found the case through their Twitter. They report a bunch of different cases, and I think that is hella awesome, so please check that account also in the description. I also will be linking the 2 videos that I used the clips in this video for in the description also down below, so check those out as well. They are very short videos, and I'm sure, again, knowing the most information as possible on this case will help build up the case, obviously. If you like this video, please give it a like. If you have any other cases you would like to see me cover, please leave it in the comments. And if I did unfortunately get any info wrong or left anything out, please do not hesitate to comment and tell me and point it out. I will update the description if there is any information that I did miss, or even update the comments, something like that. I'll figure something out. And of course, if you like content like this, please do subscribe, because that would make my day. And yeah, I'll see you all later.